Welcome to the deep dive. So, if you checked the box scores yesterday, you might have just seen, four standard outcomes on the MLB schedule.
Right.
But what the final tallies really gave us was, well, a masterclass in four fundamentally different ways to win a baseball game.
And four ways to lose one, too.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what made this slate so compelling for us, I think. We didn't just see baseball games. We saw, like, four distinct philosophies clashing on the field.
Mm-hmm.
We had that overwhelming psychological dominance of a shutout. Then you had the painstaking defensive struggle decided by just one run.
A real nail biter.
Totally. And then a victory built on consistent, balanced execution, top to bottom. And finally, the electric high-stakes drama of a classic rivalry battle.
Okay, so our mission today is to go beyond just the scores of these four specific matchups. Yankees versus Orioles, Reds and Cubs, Angels against the Brewers, and Giants versus Dodgers.
Yeah.
We want to figure out the strategic DNA of each result. What do these scores really tell us about maybe the long-term viability or even the mental strength of these teams?
Let's unpack it.
We pretty much have to start with the New York Yankees' decisive 7-0 victory over the Baltimore Orioles. Look, a shutout against a competitive team is rare enough.
Sure is.
But a 7-0 scoreline against a divisional rival, that isn't just a win. It feels like a psychological statement, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely does. But we need to look closer at how that dominance was achieved, right? The score makes it sound effortless, maybe.
Yeah, like the pitcher was just untouchable.
But the real story is consistency in command. The Yankees starter wasn't just throwing hard. They maintained like a microscopic WHIP. They were constantly working ahead in the count.
Keeping those Orioles hitters off balance.
Totally off balance. Leveraging, high-spin fastballs up in the zone, minimizing the Orioles' ability to generate those ideal launch angles. Baltimore batters, they managed only a handful of competitive swings all afternoon.
And the offense, as you mentioned, didn't seem to need the long ball either. They were efficient.
Very efficient.
We saw those well-placed doubles, singles, capitalizing on opportunities. But what made the Yankees' run scoring so effective that they got to 7 while the Orioles got, well, nothing?
Yeah, 0. It wasn't brute strength, I don't think. It was situational hitting. That's often the silent killer,
Right.
The Yankees' key difference maker was capitalizing on inherited runners. Their offense didn't just get guys on base. They really excelled in those two-out hitting situations.
Especially with runners in scoring position.
Exactly, which is a spot where the league average typically dips, sometimes significantly. This allowed them to turn single runs into those decisive multi-run innings that created that insurmountable lead pretty early on.
Okay, so when we look at that 7-0, we aren't just seeing a good game. We're seeing a strategic masterclass in sequencing and execution.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That shutout sends a message loud and clear.
Right.
You don't just beat us.
Yeah.
You can't even touch us today. And for a team focused on a deep playoff run, that result isn't just, another W in the standings. It's a monumental confidence booster for the whole pitching staff. It confirms their defensive linemen, their pitch selection strategy. It's all perfectly dialed in. You could almost feel the collective stress headache radiating from the Orioles dugout, just watching their high-powered offense get completely stifled like that.
Wow. Okay, so if the Yankees' win was defined by, let's say, overwhelming force.
Yeah.
The next matchup was all about microscopic precision. Let's pivot sharply to the Cincinnati Reds' dramatic 1-0 victory over the Chicago Cubs. This wasn't a statement win. This was a grinding defensive slog.
Oh, the 1-0 final score is just, it's baseball poetry, isn't it?
It really is.
It immediately signals that defense, pitch sequencing, tactical management, all of that was paramount. Both starting pitchers were operating in an absolute zone.
Just locked in.
Totally locked in. We're talking about pitchers working the edges of the strike zone, relying heavily on off-speed stuff to induce weak contact, ground balls, the kind of pitching that makes the game move fast, but keeps the tension just unbearably high.
You mentioned weak contact. So this wasn't really about strikeouts necessarily. It sounds more like the fielders were earning their paychecks.
It was absolutely about the fielders. When pitchers are focused on forcing that soft contact. Yeah. Defensive positioning and agility become the deciding factor.
Okay.
And the fact that the Cubs' offense couldn't manage to string together hits suggests that even when they did put the ball in play, the Reds' defensive lineman was anticipating it. They were converting higher than average expected hits into outs.
So how do you manufacture the one single run needed to break a duel like that? That run is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. It almost certainly wasn't some majestic home run. That single run was likely born out of pure opportunism and disciplined small ball.
Like a bunt, maybe?
Yeah, think about the high-pressure choices involved. A perfectly executed sacrifice bunt to move a runner from first to second. Maybe an aggressive secondary lead, forcing a pitch out, or a steal attempt, followed by a clutch RBI single that just narrowly slices through the infield somehow. A real testament to mental toughness.
Wow.
They had the discipline to play for contact and base movement when, the big swing just wasn't available or wasn't working.
And the bullpens. Gosh, having to maintain that 0 on the board, they must have been utterly exhausted by the final inning.
Oh, the unspoken cost of a 1-0 game, for sure.
Yeah.
Both bullpens showed immense resilience. The managers, they had to be flawless with their high-leverage reliever choices.
There's no room for error.
None. For the Reds to secure that win, it really shows their confidence in their late-inning specialists. Handling the stress of knowing one single mistake, a walk, a wild pitch means a tie game, probably extra innings.
Yeah.
This win proves the Reds have the grit, the ability to triumph when the margin for error is basically 0.
Okay, moving on then. Let's analyze the Milwaukee Brewers' 5-2 victory over the Los Angeles Angels. Now, this wasn't a shutout, and it wasn't quite a 1-0 nail-biter. This score suggests something different. Maybe consistent, methodical execution across the lineup.
Yeah, I think you're looking at cohesion versus star power here. The Brewers' 5-2 win feels like the definition of a balanced attack.
Okay.
They weren't leaning on any one superstar to carry them. Instead, they seemed focused on maximizing run expectancy just by getting on base, drawing walks.
And making sure the bottom of the lineup contributed too.
Exactly. Making sure the bottom third of the lineup contributed meaningfully. That's key for balance.
Tell us a bit more about that balance. What does a balanced offense look like, strategically speaking?
Well, it means they minimize the number of empty at-bats, for one.
Yeah.
Making sure every position player saw a good number of pitches, driving up the Angels starting pitcher's pitch count quickly.
Right, wearing him down.
Yeah. It also means they weren't overly reliant on the home run. They were moving runners strategically, using the short game, maybe some hit and runs, just keeping the bases active.
Yeah.
That's a hallmark of a disciplined team philosophy.
And then on the flip side, you have the Angels, a team kind of notorious for having these isolated moments of brilliance.
Right. Big stars.
Who only managed 2 runs. Was that simply down to great Brewers pitching, or was it more a failure for the Angels to connect the dots?
I think it was a bit of both, but primarily a failure for the Angels to achieve sequence, as you put it. Their 2 runs likely came from 1 or 2 big hits, maybe a homer, a well-placed double.
Sure.
But they struggled to string those hits together. The key strategic failure for the Angels was probably converting the middle-of-the-lineup success into actual runs. They were likely stranding runners on base because the players behind the stars couldn't keep the rally going.
So if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the Brewers' win is almost like a template for sustained success over a season, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Executing all 3 phases, hitting, pitching, and defense at a high, consistent level, builds momentum that, individual star power just can't replicate over 162 games. For the Angels, this game has to serve as a major wake-up call. It demonstrates that dazzling individual moments, they just can't overcome a lack of consistency and situational hitting throughout all 9 spots in the lineup. You've got to be deep to win consistently.
Depth matters. Okay, finally, let's jump into that historic rivalry. Los Angeles Dodgers versus the San Francisco Giants. It ended with the Dodgers winning 2-1. Now, this score mirrors the 1-0 game in tightness.
Yeah, very close.
But the tension feels fundamentally different because of the history, the weight of that rivalry.
The weight is palpable. In a rivalry of this magnitude, every single pitch, every stolen base attempt, every defensive shift, it just feels amplified by a factor of 10.
Totally.
This 2-1 final score tells us this is a classic battle, probably defined by exceptional starting pitching on both sides. Guys who just refuse to concede any ground.
So we're talking about clutch moments again. Runs in a game this tight, especially against that rival, they feel like they're earned through sheer willpower.
They really are. In a game like this, the difference makers often aren't the big home runs, but those well-timed RBI singles or doubles smacked into the gaps. They require that perfect intersection of location and timing.
Just finding a way.
Finding a way. The runs were probably the result of the slightest advantage gained, maybe a successful base steal that shifted the defense's focus for a second, or a batter winning a grueling 9-pitch duel late in the count.
The outcome, 2-1, means the difference was literally one extra successful decision, one extra executed play. Could we argue the Giants made a strategic mistake late? Or was it simply the Dodgers executing better under immense pressure?
Well, it's often that execution under pressure that separates rivals, particularly at this high level. The marginal victory, it just underscores the incredible parity between these two teams.
So close.
So close. The difference could have been a single missed defensive positioning call by the coach or a reliever leaving just one pitch up in the zone at the wrong time. What the Dodgers win confirms, though, is their ability to close out a game when the emotional stakes are at their absolute highest.
And that tiny, razor-thin margin of victory really does emphasize the old adage, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The 2-1 final score, especially in a deep rivalry like this, proves that baseball is truly, truly a game of inches.
Mm-hmm.
The psychological edge gained by winning a game that could have easily gone the other way based on one swing or one fielding choice. It just solidifies the intensity of this ongoing feud.
Mm.
And the loss, even though it's small, forces the Giants to analyze every single micro decision made late in that game.
What a diverse snapshot we got yesterday, just thinking about it. From the overwhelming psychological statement made by the Yankees' 7-0 win,
Yeah, complete dominance.
through the painstaking defensive genius, really, of the Reds' 1-0 victory, and culminating in that nerve-shredding 2-1 rivalry duel. It covers the spectrum.
It really does. And the key takeaways for us, based on these unique narratives, they seem pretty clear. We saw the sheer psychological advantage you get from just crushing a rival with a shutout. We were reminded of the mental discipline and, frankly, toughness required to manufacture runs in a tight defensive battle. And the Brewers reminded us of the critical long-term importance of cohesive team balance over just isolated star power.
Yeah, the strategy involved in this sport is just endlessly deep, isn't it? And these 4 results really highlight that winning can be achieved through overwhelming force, like the Yankees showed, or through almost microscopic efficiency, like the Reds pulled off.
Exactly. 2 totally different paths to victory.
So this raises an important question, I think, for you, the listener, as you track the rest of the season. When facing a tough, maybe evenly matched opponent, is the riskier strategy, the one relying on one moment of pure, decisive opportunism, betting everything on that single perfect play, is that worth the potential payoff? Or is consistent, balanced execution always the superior, maybe safer path to victory? Something to think about.